Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Business Over a Brew. My name is Ellie. I will be your host again for this episode. Today, joining me, I have the founder of the WorkRoom Consulting Group, Keshia Hair. Keshia, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, I am super excited for your episode to learn all about the WorkRoom Consulting Group. So I guess let's just get right into it. I like to always start off the episode just kind of getting some general questions, learning a little bit more, and then we'll really get to dive deeper into what exactly you do. So really my first question for you is, could you just share the story behind the WorkRoom Consulting Group? Like what really inspired you to start this business?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a non-traditional story, right? This was an accident. I am an accidental entrepreneur. That's what I tell people all the time. I've been in the nonprofit industry for almost about 10 years. I've been in education and nonprofit space. And I was really applying for executive level roles. I had left my previous role, and I at that point I felt like I had done like all I could do at that role, and I don't, it gets to a place where you're like, I don't know what else I can achieve here. And for me, it's very important to have things to do, and it's like, what's next? So once I kind of reached those goals, I was like, I think it's time for the next level.
Yeah.
I started applying for senior level roles, and at the same time, I was working with some clients, and it just took off from there. So I left my role, and I looked up, and within a month, I had 2 clients, and now the workroom has over 6 figures in revenue. So just a very accidental story. Because that's not what I was doing. I was working with an executive coach, and here we are.
I mean, I think it's a pretty awesome origin story. And to come off and saying, it started out as I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and now you're, in this position, it's pretty wild. What do you think, or what is really the core mission of the WorkRoom Consulting Group?
Yeah, at the core, we are really focused on helping organizations and small businesses with sustainability and growth. That is really important to us. So the core of our business is organizational development and infrastructure. We know that if organizations don't have systems in place, or if their systems need a little work and development, we know they won't be successful. So we really want organizations to be successful. We really want to see them scale and grow. And that's what we're here to do, to support.
Absolutely. And you kind of just mentioned it, but what industries or types of businesses really would benefit from the services that you do provide?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different, primarily right now we're working with nonprofits, but we also work with small businesses. So small to mid-sized businesses that may be in a transitional period. We really like organizations that have that are founder-led, or thinking about transitioning from a founder and really thinking about what those next steps would be in terms of succession planning. That's really our sweet spot. And organizations that are preparing to scale or in the process of scaling, we really like those as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear. And, I kind of want to now transition more into the leadership and the organizational development side. So I do have a question, what sets the WorkRoom Consulting Group apart from other leadership and organizational development firms, services, consulting groups similar to yours?
Yeah. We don't really focus on necessarily leadership development and training. That's not really what our work is. Our work is more so focused on really building structure, like really putting systems in place. And so for us, that's not just consulting, it's also implementation. So we will literally look at it and say, there are some gaps here, and this is how we can fill it in. For one of my clients now, we just did a payroll comparison. So we are trying to figure out what payroll should look like and timesheets. And that's what we're doing. We're in the weeds with people. We are their partner. We are working alongside them. So some consultants will give you the ideas, but where we really shine is that we give the ideas, but we also implement.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that organizations are able to take that on after our work is done.
Yeah. I mean, I completely hear what you're saying, and obviously there's always room for improvement and for change. But would you mind walk me through a little bit the process? Like if those listening and tuning in, if you head to the website, you'll see essentially like the pillars is what I would almost want to call it. But walk me through, the different aspects of what you really do and focus on when you do come in and help out organizations.
Mm-hmm. So I'll start with our fractional services. So our fractional services are actually a new iteration, and it started from the work that we are doing in terms of operations and organizational development and infrastructure. So what I found in working with clients is that there are a number of needs. So we looked at web design. So we're like, their website needs a facelift. Right now, organizations may be running the same website that they ran from inception, and that's not going to work in 2025. So we are giving them a major facelift. So we've done that. And now we're offering fractional services around web. So for clients that we've already done their websites for, we offer monthly maintenance packages. So we will not only update their website, but in that process of doing their website, we'll also do some branding and templates and give them a design guide as well. And so then we're able to update their website more easily because we've actually developed it, right? So we're able to do that. And then we have some other packages that we'll do as well. We have administrative packages where, we know that people can't always afford to hire a full-time administrator. And sometimes you really don't need them. So we will take that cost on and we will offer it at a fractional service. So we will, one of my favorite things to talk about is everyone has that info at basic main mailbox and no one has any time to get to it.
Yep.
We'll do that for you. We'll take care of that. And we'll make sure that you get the messages that you need to see on the foundational level. And then we have some additional services. We have our core packages and also our signature package. So we'll kind of get to additional services in those, but we're really trying to take on and kind of take some things off of the plates of founders, executive directors, and COOs. That's really important to us. And then we have our monthly COO package. And that's really where we get into the organizational development and infrastructure piece. So that's what I've currently been doing for some clients. And that's when we look at a variety of things. Sometimes we're doing organizational assessments and we're trying to figure out if organizations have the right teams in place. Because sometimes we've gotten to a space where, yes, we're hiring for certain roles, but are they the right roles? And then when we're looking at our team that we have, do we have people on the teams who can fill those roles if they have a certain skill set, right? And sometimes it's just that we're not looking at what we have. And so those are some of the adjustments that we've been making. And then when it comes to hiring, we have an idea in our mind. Like we may say, we want someone who really embodies the spirit of the organization, right? Especially for nonprofits. That's very true. Who really embodies what our organization is about. And for small businesses as well, everyone has a brand, right? But when you look at the broad picture and you look at the people on your team, what I'm really hiring for, I'm looking at the gaps. So I'm trying to figure out not only personality type, if they will fit, but if they have some additional skills that could really benefit the team that you have and really round it out. And so that makes it a different process. So we start to look at it differently. So that's the other piece. I'm a social worker, so I look at things from a very holistic lens. So I am also encouraging my clients to look at things differently. And that's some of the work that we do. And broadly, some people call it organizational development. Some people call it change management. I just call it really good business, right? That's what I call it. I'm like, this is just actually really good business. And we're just really excited to help people grow.
Absolutely. Yes. And you briefly mentioned, web design, branding. In your opinion, how important is that to a business, to an organization? I mean, Big Z Media, We are a digital marketing company. Personally, I eat, sleep, breathe, marketing, campaigns, all of that good stuff. But in your opinion, how important is almost the online presence, the facelift of it all to organizations or businesses that you have worked with?
I think it is, if we're on a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11, because I think it is very important. That digital presence can make or break a partnership. It can make or break a customer. Like, I may come to your website, and if your website isn't up to date, it doesn't look organized, I'm going to think as a business that you're not organized, right? Yeah. And I'm going to think that maybe you can't handle the volume of work that I may bring, or, maybe that's not the right fit for me. And that's not what we want our clients to portray. We want people to know that our clients are poised and ready. So we want to make sure that their websites really match not only where they are, but where they're going.
Yep, absolutely. I also hear that loud and clear. Because it is true. It's almost like the same if you're shopping for just about anything. Obviously, you want something that looks clean, that looks great, that looks fitting. And as you're saying, if your website is the same as it was when you started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm not as confident that it might fly by now that we're in 2025, and online presence and digital marketing really, really does do a whole lot for businesses. And in this case, organizations. But, I did want to kind of dive deeper more into learning more about the process. Because again, to those tuning in, if you go to the website, you can see that there's about 5 big pillars that stand out. And I enjoyed reading a lot about them, especially in terms of culture. I think there's always ways to change and ways to adapt and better the culture, the environment of business and organization. So I think I honestly don't know if I have a question. I just want to know everything about that process within culture, within a business organization.
So for me, what I've decided is your people are the most important asset to any business, right? Like, I think people tell us that, there's research that tells us that, but it's really hard for us to put it into practice. Like, when we get into the work, when we're focused on, if you're a nonprofit, if we're focused on mission, if you're a for-profit business and you're focusing on sales or attracting clients, sometimes the people who actually work with us and help us complete the work, sometimes they move down on the priority list, right? And the thing is that we really have to look at the assets that we have. Like I kind of mentioned before, so for the people, for us, is that, the big thing is that we're going to help you review policies. So we're going to look at everything we have. When we do an organizational assessment or organizational audit, we're looking at everyone that you have on your team. We're looking at the roles that you have currently. We're looking at everyone's resumes. I want a resume. I want to know what their backgrounds are in. And that really helps us take a very in-depth look at what you already have, so we know what to hire for, right? And we know where some gaps are in your team as well. So if we look at your team and you say, this is a team, we're focusing on education. Let's say we're focusing on education.
Okay.
So if we're focusing on education and we look at a team and none of your staff members have a background in like classroom management or creating lesson plans, so because they haven't done that classroom work, we know that you need someone on that team that has that expertise, right? So that's what we're going to look for. So the next time when I'm doing a search for you, I'm going to think about who has that skill set and how that can really be helpful to your team. So it doesn't mean that maybe all 5 people on your team need to have it, but if 1 out of 5 on that team does, they are really making a contribution to that team and strengthening it. And so that's the way we look at it. So we're looking at it from that perspective. And then that also helps with culture, right? So then we're going to look at, overall employee well-being and satisfaction, because people, if they're working on things that they're passionate about, they are much more productive. They are better employees. there's things that they care about. We all know that there are aspects of the job that we just have to do.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I hate doing administrative work, but I know admin work is very important, but I know that I'm weak in it, right? So for everyone else, it's like, we know that those things are a given.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when we hire people for roles, our process is too narrow. Our questions are too narrow. So we're not really getting at who that person is at the core and what really makes them happy, what really makes them shine. And that's something else that we're going to pull out, right? Because that's important to your culture. If you have people who want to show up for work and you're able to retain staff, that also impacts your bottom line, right? So we're not going through the process of rehiring. We're not going through the process of, putting people on, putting ads on LinkedIn or Indeed and paying for additional searches because we're retaining the staff that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important, right? And then we want to be able to attract the top talent. We want to be able to attract the best people that we have. And sometimes I also recognize that we get too caught up in the top talent. Sometimes we need to look at the potential that people have. And that comes in looking at the whole person, looking at their resume and really asking those great questions that help lead to really attracting good talent and making a good hire. So we look at that. And then stakeholder engagement is really good for us. So we are that's a huge piece. And that's where, as a social worker, I've worked in a number of nonprofit agencies and I've worked with a number of nonprofits and some small businesses as well. And we really have to be intentional about engaging stakeholders, right? How do we keep them engaged? How do we balance making sure that we're giving them enough information and not overloading them with information? So that's where some of that branding and marketing comes in as well. But also making sure that, especially for nonprofits, that we have enough touch points. We really have to be intentional about how we're doing that. So sometimes we come up with some different strategies for clients that'll help lead to that. And sometimes, again, it's kind of like when we're thinking about our staff, like sometimes that community engagement can be too narrow. So I also think about helping my clients open that up. Like, who are all of your stakeholders? Not just one. And how do we create things where we can bring people together? So the other piece is that at the workroom, we are really big on collaboration. Yes. So we know that we don't know everything. So for some of my clients, I've brought in, consultants that are really strong in succession planning. So we're working with one now. That's not necessarily our strong suit, but we can help you with that, right? And we work with a number of accountants. We're not doing accounting work, but our collaborators are. We know partners who are doing that work. So we want to make sure that we're also building that community and really expanding the reach of our clients while also strengthening the work that they do. And then our leadership just kind of focuses on, it's the same thing. It's kind of helping. I'm not doing one-on-one coaching, but I know a number of people who do one-on-one coaching and they're a better fit. But the leadership for us looks a little bit different. We're looking at that succession planning. We're looking at career arcing for staff because you want to make sure that you can keep people, right?
Oh, yeah.
In keeping people, we need to create arcs. So like, if you have someone who's reached that ceiling, we don't want that talent to go out the door. We want to be able to create an option for them to stay in our organization if we can. And that just really comes with good leadership. So really thinking about strategizing that and cultivating that with leaders, helping leaders think about who's on our staff and how we move forward with that. And then impact is good for us. Like we want to know how many people we're impacting. That is really important to us, how many people we're reaching. So we're constantly measuring. So we're looking at all of, we're tracking clicks on our website. And those kinds of things, but we're also tracking other metrics for clients. So we can think about, where are some opportunities here that we can kind of engage. And then the infrastructure, I've talked about that. And it's just all of these things kind of fit into our organizational assessment. And we do, for clients, we'll do some pieces as well. And we're always open to having conversations with people about the work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I'm sitting here listening to you go through each main category, I'm kind of thinking to myself, if I was a business owner sitting down listening to this episode, Is there a common theme, or there common challenges that seem to come up across the different clients that you've worked with, businesses, organizations, where you're starting to see a repeat in a theme? There is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think, especially what's very true of founders is that people came into this work with, with their heart. They came into it because they're passionate about it. That doesn't mean that, that's across all sectors. If you're a founder and you started a restaurant, this is something you're really passionate about, really excited about. If you're a founder and you started a nonprofit, this is something that you're really passionate about. So where we see some gaps are in that back office business. We see some gaps in the scaling, because a lot of times when founders start organizations, they're asking, they're hiring people who are close to them, who they trust, who they know. But sometimes those aren't the best people for the job. Sometimes we need to add different people into our organization so we can scale and grow. So that may have been good to get us there, but it's like, how do we get to the next level? And so then we need to start thinking a little bit differently. So that's a very common thing that I see across clients. Clients are, sometimes a little hard to change, but we get there, I really believe that we can get there for the success of businesses and organizations.
Right. And you almost kind of just answered a follow-up question of mine was, change in general is difficult. Adapting and pivoting is difficult. And so if there are founders that are listening to this episode right now, thinking to themselves, wait a minute, I might need this resource, this type of service for the time being. What could you say to them? Or, because I guess what I'm trying to get at is having the conversation, asking for assistance, help, resources, tools is going to be difficult. What can you say to the founders listening to this right now that are thinking to themselves, I might benefit from this, or organization might really benefit and, actually might need this?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, as an organization, if you've reached a place where you are feeling a little stagnant, like where you're having a little extra turnover in staff, or you're seeing some lack of productivity, then we probably should have a conversation, because what that means is what you've done to get here will not necessarily keep you here. And we want to make sure that as an organization, you're sustainable. We want to make sure, I think we can all agree that having sustainable businesses is really good, not only for us, but really good for our communities, right? But we want to see you grow as well. And if you're in a place where you're already sustainable, and you're ready for growth, that's great. But if you're in a place where your sustainability may have a few holes and gaps, then we can definitely help with that as well. And I think that's really where our sweet spot is. We really love to get into the dirt with people. And there's nothing that you really can't tell us that we haven't seen, and we're like, oh my God, this is so shocking. That's not the work that we do, because we're really here to help support people along the journey. So we love transparency at the Workroom, and that's where the name came from. We want to help leaders solve complex challenges. So the Workroom is, when you think about, I've worked in a number of organizations. So like, you think about what the Workroom is in those spaces, is usually a place where it gets a little messy. It's usually a place where, if you're in education or any place, that's where your copy machine is. If you're a teacher, there's where your butcher paper is. So it gets a little messy in there, right? Like, you're going in to put something together. I remember we had one, and I used to bind books or like marketing materials in our Workroom. That is where the Workroom comes from. So we want to get in the room. We want to get a little dirty. We may mess some things up. There may be some bumps and bruises along the way. We may get a paper cut, and that's all right, right? But we're going to have a really good finished product. And so that's where we are. And that's kind of how we're thriving as an organization.
I absolutely love the story behind the name. It makes perfect sense. And it's also extremely true. So I love that. And I love the idea behind transparency, because it is true. Like, being transparent is the clearest way to communicate and to reach that successful point. Before we kind of wrap up the episode, I always a favorite thing about this job is almost reminding business owners, and in this case, founders, why they love what they're doing. And everybody makes mistakes. We all learn our lessons. But I almost want to learn a little bit more backstory behind being a founder. What's that like? It here. So tell me a little bit about that journey of getting to where you are right now today.
It's actually a few months. So we are only about 7 months in.
Oh my gosh.
We are only about 7 months in. And, that's why I say this was a complete accident. So as an organization, I think it's probably 12 years in the making for me. Like, I thought that consulting would be on the other side of some senior leadership roles. And that's just not how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's scary. It's absolutely scary because there are new things that come about every day. Being a founder, I tell people, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm just bleeding money because there are new expenses and things that you just don't think about, right? Especially if you want to do good business. So for me, good business looks like making sure I have the proper accounting software. Like, that's really important. Making sure my team has proper project management software. That's the other thing that's really important to us. So we want to provide people with a really good service, but that means that we have to be our best. So our project management software, we are able to look at clients across all lines of business. So it doesn't matter who you're talking to. I personally don't do web services. Someone else on our team handles that, right? But in that software, we are able to look at where someone is on each project and each part of the project. Mm-hmm. So that's really important to us because we've seen that in organizations. I've seen it personally in other organizations, and I'm like, that's just not what we want. So the journey is definitely, I'm still in it. It's still going, but I'd say overall 8 out of 10 recommend. And the 2 out of 10 that I would say that I don't recommend is just a little bit of growing pains. So really thinking about those things that I didn't think about before. Like, when you're working for someone else, you don't have to think about commercial insurance. You don't have to think about, having an attorney, what your contracts look like, and those kinds of things. And it's just all of those additional things that you have to think about as a founder. And then also really thinking about people and creating opportunities for people. Mm-hmm. That's going to be really integral to the growth of the workroom going forward. Right now, we've gone from a team of just me to a team of 5 in 7 months. So we are really growing, and we are really looking forward to being able to serve other people. And I just think that's a really great spot to be in as we continue to work alongside some really great partners.
It 100% is. Now tell me what's next? What's coming up? What can we rally and support? How can we do that? But yeah, really just like what's coming up? What do you see the next couple of years looking like for you and your team?
Yeah. Right now, the big thing for us is just continuing growth. Like, we're sustaining where we are and just continue growth. We're really hoping to get our fractional services off the ground because, we know organizations can't afford full-time staff, but we want to be able to support and fill in some of those gaps. And we have a team of really experienced people, and we really in a variety of expertise. So that's the other thing, a variety of expertise.
Right.
And we really want to be able to support people moving forward and just making sure that we are continuing to grow a really great ecosystem in the St. Louis region.
Yes, most definitely. Well, Keshia, thank you very much for being on this episode of Business Over a Brew. To those listening or tuning in, we will have all the links to the website, and all the information will be down below. Make sure to definitely go check them out because 1, it might benefit you, but 2, you also might learn a lot more valuable information. The work that you guys do, Keshia, really is just stellar. It's 10 out of 10. I cannot wait to keep watching the journey of you and your team continue to grow. And again, thank you very much. And to all of those listening right now, thank you as also for tuning into this episode. And I will see you next